Hi, if you're here, you're probably interested in HybridFAST, so thank you. You may also be here because you have a few questions like, am I interested in HybridFAST? What is HybridFAST? Or maybe you understand the basics of the tool and you're wondering, how can HybridFAST fit into my current workflow? Or how can I use this tool to answer the questions that I have or the questions that my customers have? There's also a chance that you opened HybridFAST up, started playing around, and thought, ooh, there's a lot here, and weren't overly excited about the potential learning curve. Well, in this video and the subsequent videos, I hope to answer all of those questions, and I'll do my best to get you up to speed as quickly as possible and make sure that learning curve isn't too intimidating. So first, what is HybridFAST? Well, in its standard use case, it's a financial pro forma tool that takes a series of basic inputs for PV and battery energy storage systems and calculates the financial pro forma and performs a financial analysis, which can then be used for cost-benefit analysis or cash flow analysis. It does this in a transparent manner. And maybe most importantly, it does it for free. As important as it was for us in our work to be able to accurately model these systems as the industry continued to evolve, we realized that it was even more important for the industry as a whole to be able to communicate openly, effectively, and efficiently about these systems so that the conversations could keep moving and the industry could keep growing. So this is our effort to keep that ball rolling. HybridFAST was built with a couple of design constraints. We wanted it to be transparent, as simple as possible, so that it had the greatest accessibility possible. It's transparent because all of the calculations that it performs throughout the cash flow analysis are simply done on an Excel spreadsheet. There's no VBA code and there's nothing really hidden. This is really important to aid in the accessibility because depending on who's using the tool, whether it's a homeowner or a developer or maybe even somebody looking to develop policy, being able to look into all the calculations that are being performed and understand what's included, what's not included, is really important to make sure that there's no biases hidden within the calculations. We're not looking to have this tool create optimistic or pessimistic views of these systems. We simply want to be able to model them as accurately as possible from a cash flow perspective. In addition to being transparent, we wanted it to be simple. These systems aren't simple by nature. PV systems are now getting to be pretty well understood, but the energy flows in the revenue stacks that come from integrating battery energy storage with PV systems can get really complicated really quickly. Particularly if you're trying to look at revenue streams that are highly volatile, or maybe you're interested in revenue streams that don't even exist yet. Being able to model as many revenue streams as possible and even have the opportunity to model situations that haven't fully come to bear in the market yet, like commonly accessible multi-port inverters with DC to DC coupling, or revenue streams like peer-to-peer transactions where you're trading energies from your system to an electrically connected neighbor. That hasn't really been able to be modeled yet, but the HybridFAST tool does include that. While these systems are really quite complex, we've done our best to keep the inputs as simple as possible. You won't find any place in the HybridFAST tool to input a specific module type or inverter type or battery type, nor do you have to input tilt and azimuth or any other highly specific engineering considerations. There's many other tools for that, and tons of engineering resources out there. We wanted HybridFAST to be able to take the basic language that most stakeholders in the industry are using, input that, and then quickly be able to get an output that is easy to digest. Something that you can look at and say, yeah, I understand that, and I can communicate what I'm seeing with everybody on the project team. In order to increase the ability to communicate what you're seeing with the HybridFAST tool, we've done our best to focus the output on standard financial metrics like return on investment, internal rate of return, and payback. And the graphical outputs of the HybridFAST tool are cash flow based. The beautiful thing about cash flow is it's really universal. Everybody understands what a cash flow is. Everybody understands cash. There's nothing really magical about it or even industry specific. We're not looking for a levelized cost of energy or anything like that. We're simply taking an investment and seeing what the financial return is. And then through that process, we're also looking at cash flows on a monthly basis. All the potential revenues, avoided costs of energy savings, SRECs, all sorts of different battery revenue possibilities like real-time markets, sync reserve markets, peak shaving, load shifting, capacity markets, critical use hours, and of course peer-to-peer transactions, which I've already mentioned. All of those inputs get boiled down into basically one graph, a graph of the cash flow of the system. If it's going up, you have a strong investment. If it's going down, not such a strong investment. What's really unique about the HybridFAST tool is that it calculates the PV system and the battery system independently to some degree, and then it combines their two financial metrics and cash flows to produce the hybrid system's cash flows. While it calculates them relatively independently, it does in fact take into consideration how they are interacting with each other. For instance, in order to capture the ITC on a battery energy storage, you need to be able to charge your battery from some portion of renewable energy. That's accounted for. Similarly, when you're trying to stack multiple revenue streams on a battery system, you are going to run across some design constraints. While I mentioned the tool is not necessarily a system design tool or an engineering resource, it does have what we feel is the most basic functionality necessary in order to take those revenue streams and understand, well, if I'm overly extended in the sync reserve market, I probably can't participate in the real-time market. Or if I'm trying to load shift 50% of my battery capacity every day, well, that's going to also pull me out of other potential revenue markets. So the tool does calculate that. The HybridFAST tool is also customer-based. We've taken this approach because our main goal with HybridFAST, and that we're trying to promote in the industry as a whole, is to do the greatest common good. To do that, we need to promote a sustainable market for distributed energy resources. The only way the market's really going to be sustainable is if individual projects pencil out. They need to be commercially viable. They need to be financially feasible. If they're poor investments, nobody's going to build these things. So by taking a single customer's perspective, you're able to see how this system works for that one investor. Does it pencil out? What will it take to pencil out? By having this bottom-up approach, the tool becomes really useful for kind of taking a 50,000-foot view of the industry as a whole. You can look at, if we create an incentive that has this effect, how is that going to translate down to individual projects? If it takes a project that may not have penciled out beforehand, and now it starts to have a return in the 5 to 7 year range, that incentive may be appropriately sized to help spur growth in the industry. Conversely, if you create an incentive and all of a sudden these projects are penciling out in less than a year, that incentive may be a little bit too strong, and then you're going to risk running into a boom-bust scenario like we've seen before. So the tool becomes a really useful communication device. By having an accessible and easily communicated input and output scenario, it allows people from all the different aspects of the industry, from a single residential homeowner through utilities, universities, policymakers, insurance agents, lawyers, everybody that's going to be needed to help this industry grow should be able to pick up the tool and start communicating effectively. So I hope that you're excited to start looking at HybridFAST and to start using HybridFAST. In this next series of videos, we'll provide a walkthrough of how the tool is organized and how it works at a high level. And then we'll go into a little bit more of a detailed analysis about the input sheets and the output sheets. We'll talk about how you can kind of forensically look at the cash flows of these projects to understand how different elements and inputs are interacting with each other. And then we'll run through a couple different use cases. We'll also start providing quick videos that have a detailed perspective of one or two inputs, something that may be a little bit confusing or not immediately easily understood. We'll dissect that and we'll go into it. So thank you for your interest in HybridFAST. Good luck and happy calculating.